Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This is the Collector Knives / Lionsteel Bolus. First off, though, I want to thank very much my Patreon patrons for basically allowing me to spend $135 on a random knife without any real question. It handled some of the Lionsteel's new modern slip joints at Blade Show, and I figured, you know what, hey, I might as well check one of these guys out. Plus, I wanted to give Collector Knives a little support. He's been having a pretty rough time lately, and so, but they made it very easy for me to just like, yep, I'll pick one up, and they make this channel possible, so thank you for that, Patreon patrons. Next thing, size comparison, not a very big knife. Here it is against your Ontario Rat number 2, so you can see blade length-wise, pretty much same thing. Here we are in terms of your Spyderco Paramilitary 2, and your Spyderco Delica. So, yep, there you go. That is the size of this little guy, and actually, I'll do one traditional comparison, so to speak. Well, those are traditional for the channel. This is traditional for the knife world. This is a GEC number 99 pattern knife. So you can see there, that's the size we're looking at. Next thing, no disassembly here. It is a slip joint. It is a Lionsteel slip joint, even more so. They do not tend to be well built for disassembly, so do keep that one in mind. That's why you're not seeing this video. Next thing, what is this thing? This is Lionsteel and Collector Knives collaborating together. Lionsteel is building them. Collector Knives is ordering, commissioning, whatever the heck they are. But these are only available through Collector Knives, so keep that in mind. Then finally, this particular model is the ebony wood and clip point version, but there are lots of other versions out there. So let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. This very interesting little knife right here. So on the good side, it has some very nice options for you. If you go on their website, you can see there's ebony, carbon fiber, stag, micarta, or horn. So you have a nice mix of animal and non-animal substances. You've got a drop point as well as a clip point blade. So even if you're not a fan of the the clip point here, is a slightly more vanilla option for you there. And so you've got all kinds of different choices there. I like very much that you've got those options there, and it makes the knife a little bit more appealing rather than a just one-size-fits-all sort of affair. Next thing, price on this guy, to me at least, is fine. It's anywhere between $122 and $135, depending on which one of the scale patterns or scale types you get, etc. Yeah, it's a little pricier, but look, it's M390, and it's not much more than your average Great Eastern Cutlery or something like that. So I feel like the price on this guy is definitely in range. Next thing, there are some nice finishes here. Like, for instance, the blade finish is absolutely good to go. You can see there's a little bit of a belt satiny looking thing off of this guy. The wood itself is nicely polished. It's not, high polished, but you can definitely see it. The aluminum in the back, aluminum, what the heck am I saying, aluminum? It's not remotely aluminum. I believe it to be titanium, or at the very, very least, it is, worst, it is steel. But at the very least, there is a metal back here, whatever that metal is. Tantalum. Here, I'll just throw out random metals. Molybdenum. Anyways, this part back here, whatever it is actually, is nicely finished. That's what I was trying to say back here. So there you go. Next thing, this has a very nice lanyard hole back here in the osmium backspacer here. That's also a joke, by the way. But it has a nice little lanyard hole. It is very subtle. It is definitely there if you need it, but it is not there if you don't need it. And I like that very much. Next thing, this has a very easy pinch opening. Partly this is due to the double-sided nail nick or whatever you want to call it there, but it just makes it very easy to reach in and grab this guy. I do not tend to like using nail nicks. They tend to bother me. I am the only kind of nick I can really stand on a regular basis. And so this guy made it very, very easy for me to just pop this guy open with my fingers. That's a great thing. It is also, by the way, fully ambidextrous in that you have a nail nick on both sides. Even if you are a nail nick person, you can do that with either of your hands. And that's a good thing. Next thing, this is completely subjective, but this thing sounds great. Listen. Hold on. That's some quality resonance right there. It's a silly little thing, but every part of this feels like it has an authoritative snap. And that's something I do appreciate in a traditional knife. It's silly. This shouldn't matter to me, but it does, so I'm saying it. And then finally, as you can see here, it has a very convincing half stop. As this guy starts to shut, it pops and it stops at that half level. Even if you let it, even if it starts to close further, it will jump back to there. This is a good safety measure. That means if for some reason the blade does start to close on your hand or something like that, it will probably stop at least briefly up here. And so unless you have something actively pushing on the top there, you should be okay. So that's a very nice thing. And to me, those are the good things. Nice convincing half stop with a very nice sound. It is fully ambidextrous. There is a super easy pinch opening on the back here. It has very nice finishes on the parts. The whatever the heck metal this is, it's got a nice finish. This sodium. Yeah, sodium's a metal, right? In some form. Potassium? Either way, I'm sorry, chemists. I'm probably just bothering you here. Whatever it is, this part is very finished nicely and flammable. Sodium metal flammable. Be careful, kids. Anyways, that's beside the point. The price is fine, and it is got a bunch of very nice options here. Okay, back at the ranch. On the great side, the blade on this knife is spectacular. What I mean by that is that it is an M390 steel, and it seems to be performing just like I expect M390 to perform, generally speaking. But more specifically, look at the freaking grind on this. Here, let me try and zoom that in a little bit so you can see. Very nice and deliciously thin behind that edge. See? Oh, yeah, that's nice. This has a very, very nice finish on all of these parts here. You can see here it's beautifully finished. It's thin stock. It's thin grind. In fact, there's even a little bit of crowning here going on. So this top part is a little bit rounded. It's just very, very nicely done. This blade I really, really like. And if Lionsteel's future traditional knives all have blades like this, I am so in. If they keep this kind of thing up, they could very easily be one of my favorite traditional knife makers. They need to fix a couple other little things, but still, this blade is really, really nice. Frankly, I hope they start grinding all of their knives like this, because this is amazing. Like traditional knives generally should cut, but traditional knives even more so. Oh, yeah. Come on, people. The cutting performance is nice. So, to me, at least, what's great 100% is this blade. This is a good freaking blade. On the bad side, there are some downsides here. It's not designed for disassembly, so, keep that in mind. It feels a little weird to have screws on there, yet not really be able to take it apart. Either lose the screws and just pin the damn thing if you're going to make it, or I don't know, whatever. Not a huge deal, but then traditionals, okay. Next thing, it wasn't super sharp. It came to me with a burr on the edge there. I was able to remove that burr pretty quickly, and then a little bit of stropping cleared the edge up. Now it's nice and sharp, but at the same time, they could use a little more care there. Next thing, back spring on this guy. Not the strongest thing ever. It has a relatively, I don't know, it's sort of a halfway-ish sort of pull. If you like a very strong pull in a slip joint, I don't think this will super impress you. It is strong enough to be safe, I feel like. Like, it does take... it takes a fair amount of doing to close it there, but it's definitely something I'm not a big fan of there. Next thing, I'm not a huge fan of the fact that it has no finger stop. This is a weird little thing, and this is a backlock, so it doesn't matter. But I tend to like when slip joints have this little kick down here, and because that means that even if it starts to close, it'll close with an unsharpened area against your finger there. As opposed to this guy, where you can see here it's got a sharpening choil. That's nice, but this could start closing, and all it's going to do is come down and start lacerating. It's not the end of any worlds, but in a slip joint like this, I particularly prefer a stronger pull, because that means it's going to be a little bit harder to accidentally close onto my finger. Whatever, it's not a huge deal, but that's definitely something I tend to prefer in a slippy. So, there you go. That's very subjective, though. Next thing, the handle on this guy is a little bit big relative to the blade. The blade on this guy is coming in a little bit under 3 inches here, but the handle on it is coming in closer to 3.75, borderline 4 inches. So there is a fair amount of handle here that is, well, not containing a whole lot. And as a result, it tends to be a slightly bigger knife than I might expect. It's also, the balance on this guy is pretty far back. If we look at the balance here, we are coming in right around this vicinity right here, and that's not something I'm super in love with. It's fine. It's a traditional, and it's also a relatively lightweight knife, because it's got those liners made of iridium, of course. It's 2.23 ounces, but nevertheless, I tend to... sorry, metal jokes, I gotta say. Anyways, back at the ranch. You end up with a handle that is just a little bit big, generally speaking, and it just isn't really calling my name, especially with the balance and things like that. Then finally, on the bad side, this is very subjective, but I don't care for the way that Lionsteel does their traditionals, in that nothing feels like it aligns. Like, if you look at this here, you've got the scales, but then the liners are very slightly proud of the scales in most areas, areas, but not in all of the areas, which is a little bit strange. And then similarly, if we look at the backspacer here, the backspacer doesn't necessarily align with the scales going on here. That's not great, and they're all curved independently. Like the backspaces are rounded off on the top, which is probably a good thing ergonomically, but that curve doesn't meet effectively with the backspacer in the middle there, back spring. We can be all traditional here. And the blade itself, when the knife is open, doesn't particularly align well with the backspacer. There's a little bit of a step down there. I'm going to be honest, it just feels like no part of this knife really super aligns with anything else. It's just everything's curved differently. It feels like it's really put together of very disparate parts, and we can compare that to a more traditional kind of technique where everything tends to be smoothed off along the top, where everything tends to be aligned very, and I understand that part of that requires some pinning, but even, on this kind of guy here, where you can see there is just this beautiful, this is, by the way, a Pena Knives custom front flipper trapper, so this is an unfair comparison. But still, it is possible to make something that screws together, yet is also very smoothed off along the back there. And so, to me at least, I'm not a big fan of that. The fact, I would like this a lot more had they done the traditional thing of just sanding the whole damn thing down, making it one even, nicely chamfered surface rather than having 15 individual surfaces here. And that would be that would be a great thing. So, anyways, to me at least, that's what's bad here is that nothing really feels like it aligns and is fitting flush with anything else. The handle is a little big relative to the blade with kind of a weird balance. There is no finger stop on this guy or kick to hit my finger. It'll just close right onto there. The back spring isn't super strong. It wasn't super sharp, and it's not designed for disassembly. Nothing particularly ugly on here, so let's go to the final conclusion. My main final conclusion, aside from the fact that I know more metals than I thought I did, is that this guy, Lionsteel's traditionals have actually come a long way. I handled the round head, and I ended up feeling a lot like, this felt like, the round head, that is, felt like a modern maker was making something shaped like a traditional knife. It was very nice, but it forgot a lot of the lessons that traditionals have to offer about things like pull strength, edge thinness, frankly, stock thinness, and the construction on it felt more modern than anything. I feel like this is a very different story. In the intervening year and a half, 2 years, probably 2 years maybe at this point, this guy is, there's a lot of change here because now they're using more traditional nice materials. They're using very nice finishing work over the thing, generally speaking. It's got a very nice pull, maybe not very nice. It has a nice pull. I like it stronger. Whatever, read that for what it's worth. The action on it is smooth. The opening on it is much easier nowadays, and it has a stellar blade on there. This blade is this is a traditional style blade with a nice thin grind. I like this blade so damn much. I mean, sure, they could make improvements. They could build it a little bit better for disassembly, or just pin the thing and call it a freaking day. You can sharpen it with a little bit more care, strengthen the pull, take a cue from traditional construction and maybe align a surface or two. Make this one solid surface rather than 15 disparate ones. I mean, I think that if you're going to go if you're effectively going to pin them shut, you might as well just freaking do it. Anyways, I digress. There were some things that could be improved here. And personally, this particular handle isn't really tickling me, and I can't say I need another traditional in my life. However, all of that said, this knife warms my heart. And the reason I say that is because seeing a really amazing traditional style blade attached to a handle that is reasonably traditionally, done, coupled with interesting materials at a price point that's not going to be ripping my face off, that's really awesome. I'm really thrilled to see the amount of progress that's been made here. Even if this specific knife isn't necessarily to my taste, and even if they're doing things in the construction that don't feel super traditional to me, it is an awesome thing. And so if Lionsteel and Collector Knives, or both of them independent, whatever, if they can keep this approach going, and they can keep improving the quality, keep improving the traditionality, if you will, of the knife as they're moving along, the amount of progress from the shuffler, from the round head to this little guy is huge, and I really hope to see where they're going next. Because I think if they can keep this up, we will have a bolus of really good traditional modern knives hitting the market soon. Get it? Bolus? Large amount of something into a pipeline? Anyway, I digress. There you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.